Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Hope you can find a little shade here. We're in the beautiful Los Angeles here in the sun, making an important announcement today. I'm California Attorney General Rob Bonta, and today we announced the 2024 results of our Eradication and Prevention of Illicit Cannabis program, or we call it EPIC, of that task force's work over the last 3 months. Working intensely up and down the state, confronting and combating and disrupting and detecting the illicit marketplace when it comes to cannabis in the state of California, and executing multiple operations to take down that criminal activity, to seize cannabis. I'll give you more details about how much and what its value is. But another very successful season of enforcement when it comes to taking on our illicit cannabis marketplace. Of course, in California, we have a legal cannabis marketplace where folks can become California businesses like any other business if they follow the rules, if they comply with the regulations, pay their taxes, do their part. The illicit cannabis marketplace undermines our legal marketplace, and so we were very active over the last 3 months. I'm going to let this plane pass. We were very active over the last 3 months, making sure that the illicit marketplace was confronted with law enforcement activity that took down its operation. So we want to ensure that these illicit criminal actors do not poison our waters, do not violate our public lands, do not harm our health or undermine our public safety. And we discovered quite a few operations that were doing all of those things, unfortunately, over the last 3 months. And I want to start with a huge thank you. We are only here because of our teamwork, our partnership, our collaboration, the work among different entities, agencies, departments, teaming up, sharing resources, sharing intel, committed to a common cause and goal, and through that process, getting some incredible results that I'm very proud of. I do want to acknowledge, and you'll have a chance to hear from them momentarily, California State Parks Law Enforcement Assistant Chief Jeremy Stinson and California Department of Fish and Wildlife Assistant Chief Frank Imbrie. In addition to the agencies represented here, I also want to thank our partners at the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the U.S. Forest Service, California State Parks, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, California National Guard, California Environmental Protection Agency, the National Park Service, and nearly 24 local law enforcement agencies across the state. So you can see the number of team members that work together to achieve these results. Finally, I want to thank and acknowledge members of my team who spearhead this important work. Chief of the Division of Law Enforcement, Stephen Woolery, Assistant Chief of the Division of Law Enforcement, Jameen Teague, Director of the Bureau of Investigation, Scott Hunter, EPIC Special Agent Supervisors, Patrick Haig and Robert McLaughlin, and Senior Assistant Attorney General Harinder Kapoor. So we're putting in our resources. I want to say thank you to our team members for their work in this joint effort. We're here today because upholding public safety is our chief mission, our shared duty, our top priority. It takes all of us working together to protect California, to make it legal, to protect California, and to ensure that there is one marketplace for cannabis in California, a legal, safe, and regulated marketplace. And our message is clear today. We will not tolerate the environmental devastation, the public safety risks, and the labor exploitation that comes with illegal cannabis grows like the many that we saw up and down the state. So let me tell you about the operations and what we accomplished this year. This year, DOJ's EPIC teams operated out of Northern, Central, and Southern California. Together, in aggregate, conducted approximately 13 weeks of operations across 36 of our 58 counties. So a broad reach, We covered a lot of ground. We engaged in 665 separate operations. We eradicated nearly 775,000 illegally cultivated cannabis plants and more than 106,000 pounds of processed cannabis valued, and this is an astonishing number, valued at $353 million. That's the market value of the cannabis that we seized during these 13 weeks of operations. We seized and recovered 201 illicit weapons, firearms. We made over 280 arrests, and we removed illicit cultivation infrastructure. The infrastructure that's harming our waterways, harming our wildlife, our natural resources, dams and water lines that siphon away precious water from our streams and from our rivers, impacting communities, impacting farmers, as well as containers of toxic chemicals that were used at these illicit cannabis grow sites. One of those toxic chemicals was carbofuran, a lethal insecticide that is effectively banned in the United States. A quarter teaspoon of it, we should note, can kill a 600-pound lion. This is dangerous stuff, and it can cause immense damage to our people and our waterways, and so we seized that species of toxic chemical. These large illicit operations put our people and our environment in harm's way. We'll continue to hold those seeking to undermine our health and our safety for profit accountable, as we did through these multiple operations, and we'll continue to dismantle these illegal operations. In this day and age, there's no excuse for them, especially considering California already has a legal marketplace for cannabis, where those who want to participate in the cannabis industry must be. It's the only place to engage in business activity. In the illicit marketplace, we will crack down, hold you accountable, dismantle, and arrest you when you break the law. And those who want to participate in the legal marketplace are welcome to do so. And California's story is one where we made history when we became the first state in the nation to allow cannabis, medical cannabis, in 1996. We made history again in 2016, 20 years later, when we legalized adult recreational use. That was by proposition. The voters of California voted that in, and in the process created not just the largest legal cannabis market in the country, but in the entire world. Bringing cannabis out of the shadows into the legal and regulated light is good for public safety. It's good for the health of our communities. It's good for our economy. But bad actors continue to skirt our legalized marketplace for only one reason: because they can turn a bigger profit. They're not paying their taxes, they're not following the regulations, they're engaged in criminal activity in pursuit of profit. They don't care about public safety. Their illegal grows fund illicit activity and organized crime. And their illicit product harms our people by flooding our market with untested, unregulated, and dangerous cannabis. These illicit growers involved in criminal activity, they don't care about the environment. Their pesticides and toxic chemicals cause serious damage to our waterways and surrounding communities, and they don't care about Californians. Their exploitation of migrants and workers, their trafficking of human beings, their deadly working conditions are proof positive of that fact. They're reacting to our legalized marketplace by offering illegal, unsafe products that are about 2 to 3 times cheaper than licensed and regulated cannabis, making it difficult for the law-abiding business owners who are following the statutory regime and complying to compete. That's why we're here today. That's why DOJ is extremely proud of our strong, sustained partnership with federal, state, and local agencies in these efforts. We do this every year. It is yet another successful year where we're cracking down on the illicit cannabis marketplace, and you can be sure we will continue this important work going forward. Together, we'll continue to shine a light on this underground market until we put a stop to this criminal activity for good. You can see through our epic numbers this year, we're coming after those who break our laws, who cultivate illicit cannabis at the expense of our health, our environment, our economy, and our safety. And I want to, again, thank my team at the DOJ, our partners across the state and in the federal government, especially those who gear up and suit up and put their lives on the line as we engage in these operations to shut down the illicit marketplace. So with that, it's my honor and my pleasure to introduce California State Parks Law Enforcement Assistant Chief Jeremy Stinson to talk about the great work his agency has led.
Thank you, Attorney General Bonta. California State Parks is the largest state park system in the country. We have over 280 park units and 1.6 million acres of land that we're responsible for. Now, one thing we as Californians can all agree on is the importance of stewarding these resources. And I'm here today to speak to the fact that this partnership with EPIC has greatly enhanced our ability to do that. I want to just briefly call out one example from this last year. Anza Borrego Desert State Park, which is the largest state park in California. It's about 580,000 acres. Now, finding a cannabis grow is a little bit like a needle in a haystack with a park unit that size. But because we had one of our officers who was assigned to EPIC and able to get out and locate not just one, but two illicit cannabis grow sites in the park, locating these sites is just part of the story, but actually being able to go out and deal with eradicating the plants and then removing hazardous materials, trash, and infrastructure would not have been possible without this partnership. So again, I want to thank Attorney General Bonta and the other partners who are here today for allowing state parks to better be able to fulfill our mission. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Assistant Chief Frank Embry with California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The 2024 EPIC season has been another great collaboration between our allied partners in the fight against illicit cannabis in the state of California. As a state law enforcement agency, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife has fought against illegal cannabis largely since the 80s, primarily on public lands in conjunction with the Department of Justice, 3 decades ago. However, with legalization, we do more now to enforcement on private lands than public lands. And still we see the same kinds of environmental damage occurring throughout the state. From dumping of chemicals to destruction of wildlife and their habitats to the illegal diverting of water, which can have significant impact on aquatic species, riparian habitat, not to mention the public safety issues that often go hand in hand with illegal activity in general. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife has been a proud partner of EPIC, formerly known as CAMP, since the 80s. With a full-time partnership since the early 2000s, where we've supplied 2 to 3 full-time personnel during the 13-week EPIC season. This year alone, outside of EPIC enforcement, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife has served and participated in over 800 search warrants on illicit cannabis grows statewide. Okay. In doing so, we've seized over 1.2 million plants and destroyed over 125,000 pounds of processed cannabis that was seized. However, during the 3-month EPIC season, in just 13 weeks, over 664 illegal sites were serviced and were hit with 774,000 illegal plants eradicated. Okay, that just goes to show that through focused effort like these, with state, federal, and local law enforcement, we can share intelligence, assets, and more closely coordinate our efforts. We see significant impact against the illicit cannabis market in a much shorter period of time. Okay. Partnerships like EPIC continue to help conserve our natural resources in the state of California, increase public safety, and make it much easier for the legitimate cannabis farmer to succeed. Without partnerships like this in place, the fight to prop up the legal cannabis market in California is simply more challenging. We appreciate our partners with all our allied partners here, and we look forward to doing more in the 2025 season. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we are very proud of the collaborative work to promote public safety, to protect the health and welfare of Californians, to protect our beautiful natural resources, and as well as protecting workers from exploitation, all of which we've accomplished through the enforcement actions in this 2024 season. We will continue this ongoing work. We know that while we've made great progress this year, there is more to do, and we can certainly continue to make great progress when we work together. So once again, very proud of the collaboration and of the partnership. And with that, happy to answer any questions that we may have.
Yes, Mr. Attorney General. Hi, Saul Gonzalez with KQED's California Report. What does the illicit grow economy say to you about California's wider failures when it comes to our experimentation with this grand experiment we're doing with cannabis legalization generally? What's gone wrong with it in your opinion?
I think there's basically two pathways, and look, the people of the state voted for legalization of adult use. I was one of the lead authors working on a safe, regulated marketplace for medical cannabis, and we have to reflect on where we are and what the original vision was of the laws in the legislature and the proposition that passed, voted on by the people. And the idea was to end the illicit marketplace and have one unified single marketplace for legal cannabis, where regulations were followed, there was full compliance, and taxes were paid. That has not happened, and it is upside down, really. The illicit marketplace is larger than the legalized marketplace, so you have to review it and identify what needs to be done. A couple things need to be done, in my opinion, respectfully. One, ongoing enforcement at all levels, in all places. Wherever the illicit marketplace exists, we must crack down on the illicit marketplace. There needs to be consequences for opting not to go into the legalized marketplace and staying in or entering the illicit marketplace. Thus, the enforcement we do up and down the state with EPIC, thus the programs that we have with partners in our county council and city attorneys, where they are doing enforcement with our support in urban areas where illicit marketplace, illicit actors also exist and participate. There needs to be consequences and punishment for breaking the law when it comes to the illicit marketplace. Also, I believe, and I am on record with multiple efforts in trying to accomplish this, there needs to be, through legislation, smoother, easier pathways to enter the legalized marketplace. What do I mean? The tax burden and the regulations are not insignificant. And when you're trying to move what had been essentially in a marketplace in the shadows and bring it out of the shadows and into the light, you need to make that pathway, at least at the beginning, something that people will opt into, and where there's as few barriers as possible. At least you want to make sure the barriers are low enough so that folks choose the legal marketplace. And so I had proposed I think it was a 3-year reduction in the taxes associated with participation in the legal cannabis marketplace. We're always trying to regulate to the point of necessity and then stop and don't over-regulate. I think those are all part and parcel of a broader, multi-pronged approach to get where the people of California want us to be, where the legislature envisioned us to be, and where we're not today, which is having one singular, unified legal marketplace for cannabis.
So you get the frustration of people thinking, oh, once you legalize cannabis, all these problems are going to go away. They obviously haven't, or they've gotten worse.
I don't just understand it, I share it in terms of that frustration. There are things I believe we can do as a state in Sacramento, as local law enforcement throughout the state, and we're doing a great job in that regard, but there's always more to do to help end that frustration and realize that vision. Part of being great is knowing when you've fallen short of your very high standards. We've fallen short so far when it comes to a legalized cannabis marketplace. We're not where we need to be. We have to acknowledge that, and we need to take the steps and the action to get to where we want to be and should be.
Realistically, where would you say the state loses in the way of tax revenue by the illegal market as compared to what's being sold legally?
I don't know.
How much we losing?
Because the illicit marketplace is larger than the legal marketplace. You can do some quick calculations based on what we make now in the legalized marketplace. We're losing at least that, because it's that much and more that's being sold in the illicit marketplace. So it's millions of dollars in revenues. And so another good point about the benefits of moving into having one singular legalized marketplace. We'll get additional tax revenue, and we'll be safer. The workers will be treated better. Our environment will be protected. So multiple benefits from having a legal marketplace and only a legal marketplace.
People who are actually running these illegal grows, are these cartel operations? Are these private people who are here legally, or are the cartels hiring illegal immigrants to come in and farm and control?
A couple of interesting observations, and there's some variance, but some general trends. One, in our earlier, the CAMP program, which EPIC is a rebranding of that original program, started in the early 1980s, and much of the enforcement in prior years had been done on public lands. Almost all of our enforcement now is on private lands. Interesting observation. Don't know all the reasons behind it. It just is. And we go to where the illicit markets are and the operations are. We're seeing that quite a bit of it is organized crime. And just as we're seeing all sorts of applications of organized crime in drugs, in retail theft, in guns, in trafficking of human beings for work or for sex, we're also seeing organized criminal activity in the illicit cannabis marketplace.
Are you saying that the cartels basically are going to private landowners there, letting them know it's just sort of like they're on their land, they go in, they set up a grow, anybody gives them any opposition, a gun in the face says, "Hi, leave me alone"?
I don't know what the arrangement is or what the knowledge is of the owner. Given some of the isolated places that these are, I don't know if we can assume without unique factual development in a specific case that there is knowledge or tacit or explicit cooperation. Each case will have its own story to tell, and we focus more on the bust, bringing in our assets, including helicopter assets, to take down the operations, and then the county DAs take it from there and pursue, based on the facts of that case, the appropriate criminal.
An economic problem here. You're not going to beat these guys until you beat them in the marketplace. The fact that they're undercutting you by 2 or 3%, 2 or 3 times on the sales, they're going to beat you every time. Have you thought about getting literally into a price war? You can undercut it, do what you can. Eventually you'll drive them out because people don't want to pay what the cartels are selling for if they can do it legally and it's cheaper. That's the problem.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of economics involved. If you don't pay taxes and you don't follow regulations, you're saving on your costs, and you can reflect that in the price to your consumer. You can have a lower price. That undercutting is definitely happening. And so that's why I always thought it was appropriate to reduce some of those barriers that turn into costs and allow folks to be profitable in the legal marketplace and to compete with the illicit marketplace. Meanwhile, there's a rear guard action or a parallel action. My teams and our partners' teams cracking down on the illicit marketplace and showing that there are real results, impacts, consequences, including jail time when the law is broken. So I think it's a multi-pronged effort, but economics is certainly a big part of it.